Good afternoon and a warm welcome to today's webinar. My name is JP Lauer. I'm a Vice President with GEP, leading our services and key accounts in Europe. We have fresh content to go through today with the help of GEP's experts, Matthew, who will cover IT, then followed by Swapnil with marketing, and then we'll move on to R&D with Bhawna and Capex with Nishikant. A couple of housekeeping topics. You have all joined in listen-only mode. So to ask questions, please use the Q&A window. You'll see that under the GEP logo. And please remember to click submit. We will aim to answer questions at the end of the presentations through the Q&A. I will just take a minute to do a quick introduction about GEP. At GEP, we focus solely on procurement and supply chain. We provide end-to-end consulting, technology, and managed services solutions. So we do that globally, serving about 500 clients across all industries, 6,000 employees, headquartered in the US and operated across 20 offices. For those in Europe today, our key offices are in London, Amsterdam, Prague, and Cluj. We're also a very recognized business in the industry for procurement and supply chain solutions by analysts such as Gartner, Forrester, IDC, etc. So Matthew, over to you for the IT section.
Okay, thank you very much, JP, for the introduction. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Matty. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, talking you through the outlook for this year within the IT and telecoms category, alongside my GEP colleagues. I'm sure you'll find the insights useful and applicable to your roles. And I will also be hosting the Q&A session at the end. So feel free to log your questions throughout, or alternatively, type them straight in the chat bar so that we can answer them for you at the end. So before we look at this year's outlook, let's recap on last year. So last year, I discussed expectations for the year ahead in the main subcategories within IT. These included software, which was trending an increase both in spend and in pipeline projects. We had professional and managed services also showing double-digit spend increases due to labour shortages and power imbalances between buyers and suppliers. And in the hardware category, we noted supply chain disruption, resulting in unplanned sweating of assets and a vastly shortened buying horizon for procurements. So in 2023, we do expect much of last year's themes to continue, with transformation being a priority. Organisations will need to embrace a paradigm shift towards IT cost takeout levers, which is shown here on the left of the slide. They will include strategies within process and operations, demand and policy, and innovation. And software spend will continue to rise as organisations grapple with demand and price increases. And on the services side, non-price levers are being explored, which include maximising current resource utilisation and an in-depth review of IT service delivery models. So overall, we do expect 2023 to be a challenging year for IT procurement professionals, as some of the factors that we highlight in this report increase pressure for cost savings, while at the same time making the pursuit of those savings even more challenging. So let's dive into the subcategories, and I'll start with software. So on the software side, all software suppliers, large and small, will be experiencing the same cost pressures as any other organisation. And in response to those, they tend to strategize on how to increase revenue from their client base. They usually prioritize upselling and cross-selling, and we always see annual increases in line with the relevant indices accommodated for in their terms and conditions. More often than not, the annual increases do take our clients by surprise, which implies a lack of knowledge on the small print. But we are starting to see our clients consider more criteria when making selection for software, such as comparing terms and conditions, which is also demonstrating an understanding of vendor lock-in in the software category. Cloud continues to be a trend that's reshaping organizational spend, moving from the capital purchases to the operational purchases. and data is becoming increasingly mobile, with the subscription-based commercial models that our clients are adopting having implications on the governance and safekeeping of that data. The most important thing for procurement teams to remember on the software category is that cost-saving opportunities are subject to high barriers to change and are realised over a longer period. So strategies should be adjusted accordingly by being aware of the supplier market, with a particular focus on new entrants, but also having an understanding of incumbent capabilities. And procurement professionals should also be suggesting that we get buy-in to the projects much earlier, perhaps even years in advance, to ensure cost bases remain competitive and minimise disruption to IT teams. So that was software. So moving on from software onto hardware now. Across the hardware category, tactical purchases are becoming increasingly rare for our clients, and this is even evident at the IT peripherals level. There have been many geopolitical challenges impacting raw material supply, and lead times for the most complex and sophisticated machinery have increased by up to 75%. Organisations that are not thinking about demand requirements between 5 and 10 years in advance will suffer the most when it comes to acquiring hardware supplies at competitive prices. If those long-term views are not being formed within the organisation, I think it's procurement teams that should be speaking up and taking the lead and highlighting the risk of not agreeing a longer-term strategy, which include increased proportion of out-of-support kits, higher acquisition costs, and a lower prioritisation of their demands by suppliers in the market. So procurement teams can also put forward proposals for over-investments, maximising commitments, and promoting the establishment of true strategic partnerships with original equipment manufacturers to bolster their position in the market as a valued customer. So that was hardware. And moving on from hardware onto IT services now. So as we move forward, technology is developing faster than ever, particularly in networking, server and storage. And as this is happening, the labour pool required to adopt these technologies contracts and becomes increasingly smaller. So the most competitive resources in the market demand the most lucrative remuneration packages, alongside innovative methods of employee retention for permanent headcount, which is resulting in overall IT costs for IT services going up. So we have seen a trend towards the scoping and shaping of managed services. And what that does is it allows organisations to tie down high quality IT services at a competitive price point for a longer period of time. Procurement teams should be offering support in the review of the service delivery models, contributing valuable market intelligence and insight to help shape those future decisions on those models. They are well placed to do this given their bird's eye view on the accumulative spend across the organisation and obviously their relationship with supply chain partners. Finally, on the services side, procurement teams have the opportunity to assert their influence on the contingent worker cost profile as more resources are acquired via the supply chain routes using the traditional demand management levers. So that was IT services. So that was a quick tour of the key subcategories within IT. I hope you found that useful. There is something going on at the macro level that's worth mentioning in this session, and that's a bit of legislation that's coming into play this year in Europe. It's called the European Union's Digital Markets Act, abbreviated as DMA, and it's expected to change the way that large platform suppliers operate via influencing policies and procedures. In the longer term, it's designed to ensure fair competition and more choice for organisations and end users. This is certainly worth a mention in the outlook because it has implications on merger and acquisition activity. It will probably decrease in Europe when this really gets established. In the legislation, competition is referred to as contestability, and we do know there are specific strategies that large platform suppliers pursue to reduce this contestability. We also know that the UK and Australia are currently working on their own versions of this legislation, and we can see some of the impacts from Germany's long-established Competition Act. So we do consider this legislation to be a positive, not just for procurement professionals, but for everyone, as the European Union tries to weed out anti-competition strategies pursued by some of the IT giants. Okay, so that was me. That was me on the IT category. Brings me to the end of the outlook for this year. My name was Matthew Howland, and I'll be happy to take any of your questions in the Q&A at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll now hand over to my colleague Swapnil, who will cover the marketing category. Over to you, Swapnil.
Everyone, am I audible? Hello, everyone. Am I audible? Awesome. In 2023, marketing organizations in Europe are looking at unprecedented challenges, and procurement has a major opportunity to help marketeers acquire the capabilities that are needed to face the unexpected and unexpected headwinds of 2023, including tough macroeconomic picture, waning consumer demand, and tightening of marketing budgets. Brands that invest during tough times typically gain a competitive advantage against those who don't. 2023 will present numerous challenges to the marketing ambitions of many brands. Having the right strategy to affordably build and scale these capabilities will be essential to driving growth and being the industry leader in the share of voice business. For this regard, GEP has helped multiple brands and its marketing teams in Europe to optimize the agency ecosystem on the creative, media, commercial distribution, and to create enabling factors to fight the challenges of 2023. When we talk about challenges of 2023, let us first talk about what are the trends that marketing organizations will observe that will have significant impact on how procurement influences marketing teams' functions. The first and foremost trend that we've observed is that marketers will have to focus and divert their budget from brand advertising to direct response campaigns to get consumers to buy, because end of the day ROI is what matters in a ever decreasing marketing budget scenario. The continuing impact of Russia Ukraine war and other political, social, and commercial issues affect every household and the business operating in Europe. With possible recession looming and consumer spend going down, there are various brands, there are various organizations that are struggling. While Europeans are trying to focus on essentials, ensuring that they are prioritizing bottom line needs and ensuring that non-essentials are removed from the share of wallet business. Even for essentials, many shoppers are turning away from well-known labels to discount or generic products or private labels. This is the strategy. This is a year that is going to help affordable brands and retailers benefit directly from this trend. And that's why it is important to deliver direct response campaigns to get consumers to buy. The next trend that we've observed is that Gen Z will not respond to previous advertising techniques and are wary of brands, specifically with audio media's explosion. There are brand there are brands that are different stages and are moving from mass reach to personalization. Advertisers need to move towards personalization in different contexts and different scenarios. It is all about creating content and being part of the trend and cultures. It is about being less risk averse and really listening to what's going on. When we talk about listening to what's going on, it is really important to understand that it is not about the magnitude of the data. It is about getting the smarter data faster and at the same time using and being agile to the way it spends and creates content. When we talk about personalization, when we talk about in direct response campaigns, it is important to talk about retail media growth. That will be the theme of 2023. As online continues to represent increasing proportion of shopper spend in the wake of COVID, more retailers will lean into retail media as microeconomic climate tightens margins and drives retailers to find additional top line revenues. This will lead to breakdown of walled gardens by the established media players and ensure that there is a new way of media dollars being spent. With that understanding, there are four pillars that are crucial for procurement to be involved in marketing organization. One is agency, where ensuring solid relationships and at the same time ensuring efficient and effective resource mix and engagement models to stabilize the team and ensuring high content driven efficiency personalization is the source of the success. The next pillar is data and insights. Refreshing data and ensuring that it is delivering actionable recommendations out of the data captured is important. We've seen that digital and e-commerce is increasing since COVID-19. This as a category has gone through significant revolution, and therefore, along with this category, Martech's introduction and Martech's integration into the marketing becomes really, really important. And last but not the least is media. Media still contributes significantly to the marketing spend, and ensuring and efficiency and effectiveness through introduction of hybrid engagement models and drop in upfront TV consumptions, increasing in programming TV sets are becoming really important. With that, I close my topic on marketing and would be happy to pick up any questions during the Q&A session. Now I'll hand over the mic to Bhavna.
Thank you, Swapnil. A very warm welcome to everyone, and hope you've been able to gather a lot of interesting insights so far. The focus of the next few minutes will be to dive deeper into the R&D category with a focus on life sciences and also how organizations need to embrace changes to drive more value for their organizations despite market headwinds. The last 2 years saw a record-breaking demand in R&D driven by the pandemic and extreme business pressures, causing immense disruption in the supply chain. Throughout 2022, R&D procurement leaders addressed challenges around a tough labor market, inflationary pressures, and higher regulatory costs. However, this is now changing. 2023 is a year looking to be a year of moderation, where the category will resume pre COVID levels of investment, pipeline activity, and the launch of new drugs. Despite all external market chaos, the R&D industry will maintain a strong focus on speed to market as a critical driver for success. Technology innovations that were accelerated by extreme circumstances are now being integrated across the global R&D pipeline for organizations. In the past, many pharmaceutical companies deprioritized company wide overhauls in the face of competing business pressures. However, in 2023, factors such as slowdown, geopolitics, new therapies, and new ways of working are making it essential for companies to look at the larger horizon and make long term choices in sourcing and supply chain. As procurement leaders, how do we prepare for the next 12 months? As we look forward to this year, while we do anticipate a recessionary market with continued budget cuts across companies, we also see a strong need for speed in drug development. Procurement and supply chain teams can gain competitive advantages by focusing on four key actions. First, reorganize your R&D spend, aligning high-value R&D investments to critical customer needs. Looking at product segmentation within your company and understanding what are the associated R&D costs against each function and how those drive your revenue. 2023 is going to be a year of reserved optimism. As slowdown kicks in, companies should take leverage of lower pricing in the areas of lab chemicals, reagents, equipment, and go for market bids to benchmark their current contracts, as well as expand multi-award scenarios instead of a sole source approach. Second, evaluate your current R&D organization structure to enable faster time to market, reduce overall operational costs, and align strategic objectives with R&D efforts. As an example, how are the teams currently decentralized to support the clinical trial pipeline? What are some touch points? What are some handoff points to progressing of projects? Try to eliminate process bottlenecks to accelerate overall clinical trial cycle timelines between study startups and closures. The third point is embracing a digital first mindset. This year is a year of efficiencies. Use of tools such as supplier analytics, fair market value assessment will help give more visibilities to companies on their overall R&D productivity. AI and big data is going to expand significantly in 2023. As an example, AI will transform healthcare by assisting healthcare professionals in diagnosis. We predict a continued rise of AI in patient care, such as virtual visits, and also the use of robotics in the field of surgery. And finally, early collaboration with internal and external partners for increased visibility on total costs and value chain, and also promoting the ideation of new opportunities with suppliers as strategic partners for year over year efficiencies. Hence, in a nutshell, 2023 is a year to drive greater value with focus on long term cost optimization opportunities. The overall focus for R&D leaders needs to be a mindset shift from the prevailing emphasis on price reductions and quality assurance to overhauling internal operations, identifying key bottlenecks, and focusing on the need for speed. With that, we wrap up the outlook for R&D. This is Bhavna. Thank you for being a patient audience, and feel free to add any questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nishikant for the Capex updates.
Thank you, Bhawna. Hi, everyone. My name is Nishikant. I will cover the Capex category today. So let's talk about some of the trends, right? As we have seen in last couple of years, I would say since the pandemic, the capital category investment has faced intense pressure to cut the non-critical investment, and the industry has also faced delays through the material labor shortages, cost increases, and that has resulted in slowing the capital industry growth. As we march into 2023, most of the long-standing challenges will continue, as will the sluggish growth in the shift towards the new technology, energy efficiency investment, and also towards the sustainability as well. Specifically in Europe, inflation has reached all-time high. It is more than 10.5%, and that has also increasing the borrowing cost and the cost of capital. Additionally, the headwinds are the local currency depreciation against the dollar, the rising prices of energy, metal, gases, and the current geopolitical situation as well. So, overall, this has been the biggest impact on the capital category as we go into 2023. But this has also helped the category to change the nature of the demand and look at the opportunities for more sustainability and kind of an automation. There would be some positives that we are expecting as well. There is an expectation of the stabilization of raw material supply as well as some of the softening of steel prices that would have the very positive impact in 2023. Uh, Also, due to the expected recession, unemployment rate and as well as the downward wage correction may help in this category. Uh, Equipment is one of the biggest spend subcategory within the capex, and we see that the packaging equipment continue to grow at 5% CAGR. Growth of form fill seal and the other filling machine is fueled by the innovation and new product introductions in food and beverages, pharma industry, as well as the personal care industry. The processing equipment will also continue to see the steady demand, again fueled by the pharma and F&B industry. Contrary to construction, where we expect that the demand will be restricted to the lower percentages because of the decline in the non-residential construction. Material handling equipment is one of the another equipment category where we see that there would be an expected growth. The companies are looking towards renting and retrofitting the older equipment and having the newer innovations such as lithium batteries as a solution for longer lead times and increasing the total cost of ownership as well. The biggest trend that we are expecting in 2023 is going to be investment into the energy efficiency equipment. So with the energy and gas crisis in Europe, efficiency-led equipment will be on rise in demand from the industries as well as from the households as well. So it is expected that the demand for solar panel installation will further increase, which has already been on rise since last year, but it will further increase by 30% in Europe as an essential step in European Union's transition towards clean energy and climate neutrality as well. Countries like Germany has already taken a step ahead in solar, followed by other countries such as Spain, Poland, Netherlands, and France as well. So we see a significant trend towards the HVAC systems to have the energy efficiency certifications, and the environmental friendly the refrigerants as well. So these HVAC systems we are also expecting to be on the high on the demand. Sustainability, which is again a big topic in Capex now. Whenever we talk about the Capex, it's always on the equipment space, but there is an opportunity within the construction part of the Capex investment as well. Green Capex, as we call it, it is expected to become more mainstream with the ESG regulations and stricter emissions target reduction targets for Europe. Primary focus will be on the initiatives such as design of sustainable construction projects, reducing construction waste, and achieving the energy efficiency as well. We can talk about the building automation system as one of the trending system to be implemented in such construction projects. With that, we have some recommendations for our clients and the procurement community as well, which we will talk about now. So we have a 5-point recommendations. So one is have a strategic relationship with your suppliers. Instead of being more transactional relationship, uh, as a preferred customers, you would definitely get some perks. We have seen the equipment delays and the poor services as part of the service contracts in the last couple of years. But having a good relationship with the contracts in place, you would receive an early production slot as well as best services team to from your suppliers as well, ensuring that you are getting the best services. Have a transparency through the index-based pricing for labor and material cost for your long-term projects. Second would be reevaluate your supply chain. Uh, so previously the trend has always been look at the global and low cost country sourcing. But now with the pandemic, everything has been changed and there is a focus on how you can have the regional supplier relationship as well to ensure the supplier continuity and avoid any project delays. The third one would be look at the long-term strategy. It could be, look at the rebuild for your equipment, your assembly line, instead of last minute repair and incurring the maintenance expenses. Have a budget for such rebuild programs. Uh, there would be another emphasis on the TCO. Negotiate the benefits upfront with your supplier. Have a long-term maintenance spare part contracts, as well as emphasis on your training requirements as well, because as this industry has majoritarily of unskilled labors, and getting them trained would be challenging for you in future. So have a long-term contracts with the suppliers, including the training aspect within it. The another would be the demand management. So reevaluate your demand for the new equipment. You can leverage the expertise from engineering service providers. There are several suppliers who has a capability to provide such technical services to you, and you can evaluate the design within the as time of the scope and design stage itself to reduce the overall project cost, and also look at the options for the redeployed or refurbished equipment. No need to buy the standard equipment new unless there is an necessity for it. So you can also look at some of the second-hand equipment wherever it is possible. Uh, the last one was the energy efficiency equipment investment. This is going to be the biggest trend. You will see that there is the material or equipment shortages related to the HVAC or even the solar panels. So to be ahead of the curve, look at the early investment opportunities and try to be in the market as early as possible. BAS, which is like a building automation system, it's something that you should look as an opportunity for the expansion or any of the refurbishment project. This will help you in the energy efficiency and save in a lot of energy cost. So that was the recommendation for our clients from our side. Uh, that's I have covered on the capex category. I would look forward to have your questions in the chat, and I will hand it over back to Matthew to see if there are any questions that we can address in the next Q&A session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nishikant. Thank you very much. Fantastic. So a big thank you to all the speakers, Swapnil on marketing, Bhawna on research and development, and Nishikant on Capex. Also a big thank you to everybody watching, as we seem to have gathered quite the crowd. Excellent. So thank you for all posting your questions in the chat. I'll now have a quick scan through and I will direct them to the relevant GEP colleague. Okay. So the first question is for Bhawna in the research and development category. Bhawna, we have a question here. It says, do we expect a greater focus on ESG in pharma in 2023?
Okay, thanks, Matt, for that, and thank you, to the audience as well. So, yeah, I think to start off with, ESG issues are definitely well-established boardroom conversations today, and 2022 saw a lot of attention on biodiversity issues within the R&D space, and also the EU government issued a task force making pharma a priority for 2023. So, although the topic of including pharma as part of ESG is not new, but this year we do expect a lot of intense focus in the light of developing science, a lot of pressure from investors and regulatory costs, and also important regulatory development. So, as an example, the inclusion of active pharmaceutical ingredients has been on the priority substance list. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of focus on ESG, and as companies or as procurement leaders, we might face obstacles, in order to achieve rapid progress. But the focus needs to be on having a dedicated team within the R&D organization that monitors as well as tracks ESG performance. So, yep, hope that helps. And over to you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Bhawna. Thank you. So moving to the second question. Okay, second question is for Nishikant in a Capex category. So Nishikant, how can Capex category managers add value in energy efficiency related projects?
Oh, that's a very good question. With this energy crisis currently, which is going on in Europe, it's a related question to the capital as well as to all of the industries as well. So I would say there are three focus areas where you can add in value. So one is, existing and new equipment purchases that you are going to do. Have an energy reduction commitments with your suppliers. It could be even the year-on-year improvement targets for your suppliers. Second would be look at the HVAC, where you can reassess the heating and ventilation system. Maybe an internal engineering team or even the external service provider can help you in that. Identify the overall requirement of an existing system, or maybe you can also look at the replacement of the system with the newly technologically advanced equipment that are available in market. And as I was saying in the previous outlook as well, that the greater opportunity is going to be collaboration with the energy category team and looking at the opportunity for electricity solar panel projects. So start the sourcing process as soon as possible when the project has been approved, the spending has been approved. The lead time for this equipment is going to be very high, and being ahead of the curve in the decision making and ordering would be key. Capital category manager generally have a good experience with the NPV analysis versus the return on investment as well. This would be a good value add for such projects where you are looking for an heavy investment and then trying to assess the return on investment for the spending in there. And you can also look at the PPA basically, which is a power purchase agreement as part of your long-term investment plan as well. So there are these three focus areas I would say that you can use to add a value in such energy efficiency related projects. Again, I hope that helps and addresses the question that has been raised. Thanks, Matthew.
It's a great answer. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nishikant. Okay, let's see what the next one is. Okay, the next one's for me. Next one's in the IT category. So this one says we seem to spend a substantial amount of time firefighting cost increases with our software suppliers. how can we become more proactive with this issue? Okay, so price increase. I think we mentioned in the outlook software. It's 2 years running now that we've seen software with double-digit increases and the longest list of pipeline projects that we've ever seen this year compared to previous years. I think the first thing to do with to reduce time firefighting in the software category with price increases, I would highly recommend a detailed review of incumbent supplier contracts, so you can uncover that small print relating to annual increases, which sometimes goes unnoticed. I think once this information is socialized amongst key stakeholders and it becomes known, it's less of a surprise to everybody. I think making sure that finance teams are aware of these marginal increases year on year for budgeting purposes is also key. It doesn't help you reacting to them; they'll still be there, but at least it's less of a surprise for the wider stakeholder groups out there. And I know it can be challenging to keep up with these as well, and it's a good idea to keep track of demand patterns as well in each different type of software, because you know the increases are always a surprise, but the demand fluctuates throughout the years, and if category managers can keep up to date with both of those aspects and keep that information well communicated, then it should make the process a little bit easier. I would also recommend proactively suggesting consolidation opportunities in the software category. Now, these may or may not be disregarded by the business, but make sure you communicate them effectively and make sure that you understand the size of the prize for consolidation and communicate that effectively to maximize your chance of getting buy-in for those opportunities. So hopefully that was a good answer for that question. Okay, I'll just have a look through the chat and see if we have any others. Okay, this might be a question just in general to the group. I'm not sure if somebody wants to take this one. Somebody's asked, how can we do change management? How can we do change management and make companies more digitally first in comparison to last year? Does anybody want to volunteer for that one? How can we do change management and make companies more digitally first in comparison to last year?
Maybe I can take that up, Matt.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, feel free to add Swapnil, Matt, Nishikant. So I think R&D is one of the areas where we see a lot of digital improvements and acceleration. So I think one of the ways how we can potentially do it is having a specific digital COE team within an organization. And the digital COE team needs to be a cross-functional group which has volunteers from various departments, be it the finance department, be it the marketing procurement department. And essentially, the digital COE is like the central repository, which has ideations and opportunities for improvement. And then we're essentially using that as a pipeline to either reduce our costs or improve our overall margins. So using the digital COE, I think that will be one effective for overall cost improvement, and also using that as a tool for gradual change management within the organization.
Thank you, Bhawna. Thank you.
Matt, adding to this point of view, adding to Bhavna's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
as we see the impact of COVID-19 goes down as we move on from 2020 to 2023, the consumer preferences that changed during the pandemic have stayed that way in terms of the shopping experiences, in terms of prioritizing the digital and e-commerce as the mode of preferred shopping. And we've seen that uh, the the contribution of e-commerce into the overall top line is going up significantly. That also means that from a digital perspective, we have to ensure that we are we are taking care of the data that is coming in, using the data in the right way, and ensuring that the data analysis generated, the footprint of the data that is generated through e-commerce and through the digital footprint is used to generate insights that are converted into actionable recommendations to strengthen the consumer understanding using the digital first strategy as explained by Bhavna.
Thank you, Swapnil. Thank you very much. I think I might just add a few points onto that from the IT category perspective as well. I think when I think about what is actually changing, for the cost profile and the supplier base in IT as companies move to more digital first, I think it's more about sort of licensing models and where software is hosted, and I think it's quite important for IT procurement teams to be aware of how the cost profile changes and how the license model changes, with particular focus on EU license agreements, subscription terms, and how do we treat those? How do we deal with those year on year compared to your sort of traditional on-premise perpetual licensing models? So if IT teams can be prepared for that change and have that sort of legal terms and conditions understanding, it will help the organization transition more smoothly. So just add to that one. Thank you very much, both Swapnil and Bhawna, on that one. Have a quick look to see what else we've got. So I've got one here in the marketing category, Swapnil. Please, could you provide a perspective on procurement helping marketing to optimize the media dollars?
Awesome. That's a great question. Media is normally the last frontier that procurement captures, but this is the most important. Media is the most important pillar. It contributes significantly and heavily into the A&P expenditure of the organization. Media typically has three levers. One is the agency fees, that is traditionally within the procurement's reach to manage and make it more efficient and effective. There are a couple of levers that one can use to deliver efficiency and effectiveness in the agency fees. The first and the foremost is the resource mix. Depending upon what kind of engagement you have, whether it is commission based engagement or a retainer based engagement, resource mix is a critical parameter to evaluate based on the requirement of thought leadership or based on the requirement of a rigor that you need in your marketing plan and in your marketing expenditure. The resource mix will play a significant role. In the last 1 year, we've observed that most of our clients have shifted to hybrid engagement model, where we have seen where there is a clear preference of specific talents and specific need of a thought leadership, and that is where the retainer engagement model is preferred for those specific resources. And at the same time, as explained in my outlook, marketing budgets are uncertain in comparison to previous years. There is a significant change that is happening, and 2023 is going to be a new year of uncertainties. And therefore, to keep the marketeers' outlook, marketeers' interest preserved, the agencies are asked to work on a commission-based engagement model. So therefore, there's a combination of resource-based engagement plus commission-based engagement for agency fees. The second pillar for for procurement to help marketing team to optimize media dollars is pass-through cost. That is media investments. From a procurement perspective, we call it pass-through cost, but for marketing, it is media dollars or working media. It is important for procurement to be a watchtower or a control tower of these investments and ensure that the commitments given by the agency, the outlook given by the agency is maintained and the commitments are delivered on a quarter basis. And if there is any change in the way agency is delivering TARP or CPRPs or GRPs in terms of frequency, reach, changes in the target audiences, this has to be captured and this has to be measured by the procurement team, providing a clear qualitative and a quantitative perspective to the delivery of the agency. The third pillar for media dollars optimization is media inflation management. We've seen that digital is gaining importance as we move forward in the e-commerce era. where now digital contributes around 30 to 40% to the A&P expenses of the organization. With that in mind, with that perspective in mind, it is important that the media inflation outlook is evaluated and media inflation is controlled. It cannot be made zero, but it needs to be controlled, monitored, and evaluated by procurement team as a neutral and a third party point of view, irrespective of what marketing team is going through and what agency is recommending. So these are the three pillars in which media dollars can be optimized by the procurement team without compromising on the marketing and media objectives set by the brand teams of the organization.
Thank you very much, Swapnil. Excellent. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay. All right, we have one here in the IT category. Again, this one's for me. So this question says, where are we seeing the largest savings numbers in the IT categories, and why? So where are some of the largest savings numbers in the IT subcategories, and why? Okay, so savings wise then, so obviously highest savings numbers are generated through RFX, formal procurement engagements, and I would say for our clients this year, at the beginning of this year, and we do expect it to continue throughout 2023, some of the highest savings numbers generated are in the capital expenditure category. And that's because we are, even though clients tend to opt for specific OEMs for specific parts of the IT estate, they are still willing to consider alternative technologies through a formal procurement process to ensure that they receive the most competitive pricing from 2 or 3 bidders, depending on if it's network, server, or storage. So it's good to see that even though it's in a lot of cases it's highly unlikely that customers and clients will choose to have multiple original equipment manufacturers on the estate, they're still willing to execute those procurement exercises to make sure that they bring competition to the requirement. And usually, you know, the savings numbers throughout the first quarter of this year have been between 15 and 30% on the Capex projects for some of the bigger spend areas like server and storage and compute. So yeah, they're definitely the biggest savings numbers in the Capex category, but there are opportunities in the services and the managed services categories as well if you're innovative with the way that you handle your procurement engagements. Okay, so that was that one. Let's see if we've got any more. We have one here for Bhawna on the on R&D. So Bhawna, what's the outlook on M&A activities looking like for 2023 in your category? Sorry,
Yep, thanks, Matt, for that. And definitely, I think this is an area. Sorry, you can hear me, Matt?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, I'll proceed. Yeah. Thanks, Matt, for that. So, yeah, I think R&D is an area where we did expect a lot of M&A in 2022, and we did not see a lot of material increase from 2021, primarily due to companies giving lower valuations for the M&A. So, in 2023, we do see an uptick within this space as big pharmas do have a lot of cash that they earn through increased in demand within the pandemic as well as the extreme circumstances. And looking forward, what we see is that a lot of creative deal makers will find ways to bridge gaps on these valuations, as well as use milestone payments, contingent value rights to be able to increase the number of acquisitions within this year. And some of the key categories where we would see a lot of mergers and acquisitions would be in the areas of digital health, emerging technologies, lab equipment, lab supplies. So these are, I think, the 3 to 4 key areas where we would see a lot of uptick in the M&A space for R&D.
Thanks, Bhawna. Thank you.
Matt.
You're welcome. Okay, next one. The next one is in the Capex category for Nishikant. Nishikant, we have a question here. It says, what type of projects do you see more often being classed as non-critical investment? Which types of projects are the ones being classed as non-critical?
Sure. Thanks, Matthew, for that. So it depends on the company as well, what's their growth and future prospects looks like. But mostly, the decision will be made on the return on investment kind of a strategy in there. So, if there is any expansion project or any improvement into the efficiency, if you are going to invest into the equipment or any installation or any assembly line, which will then will turn out to be and and return on investment 2x or 3x, or even it would be defined by the finances as well. That would be considered as a critical project, and rest of the overhauling or any kind of an roofing which are not going to add a value into significantly into the return on investment, that would be considered as a non-critical project. And that's where the leadership is going to ask, do we really want to invest into such projects, or do we want to keep it more of a focus for the production or into the direct returns as well. So I would say these are the projects based on the return on investment would be called as a non-critical projects.
Thank you, Nishikant. We have another here in the Capex category, if that's okay.
Sure.
This one says, in today's inflationary world, how do we ensure that equipment prices are in line with market, and what are the key levers for negotiation?
Sure. So of course, everyone has seen the equipment prices are going up, and that's because of the steel and the metal prices, as well as the labor prices as well. So there are very few negotiation leverage that you would have with the key equipment suppliers if it is an incumbent and more strategic supplier to you. I would say always have one or two key suppliers, and let's not have a single source situation all the time. Let's always have at least one alternate supplier for the subcategories, whether it's a global or regional ones, and agree on the prices at a scoping stage itself with an transparent mechanism of equipment price revision, right? Because steel prices, what we have seen in the last couple of years, were going up, but at the same time we are seeing some of the softening into the prices. So how can you leverage that if with the discussion with the suppliers, if you agree on the equipment prices itself without having any of the, I would say, revision mechanism in there, it is not going to help your project. So always keep an option open with your supplier to have a certain revision mechanism, whether it's related to the metal or labor. uh, Connect it with the indices which are publicly available, and align with those as a revision mechanism up or down with your supplier. This fact-based approach will help you to keep the prices in check with the current market, as well as avoid any overrunning of the budget and the project overall total project cost as well. So I would say that would be a negotiation leverage with your suppliers.
Thank you, Nishikant. Okay, we have one more. This one is open to the group for your category. What is the main conclusion for businesses across Europe with new regulations and market dynamics? I'll give this one a go. So I think for the IT category, I think taking into consideration regulations and market dynamics, I think the important thing for me is for organizations to keep up that competitive pressure, consider alternative technologies, put incumbents up against competition, and just make sure that competitive pressure is brought upon incumbent and new suppliers, like for like across the board, to make sure that supply chain cost profiles remain competitive. I think especially given the large platform regulations in the European Union coming into play later this year around April, May time, when that starts to gain traction, we should see a much more efficient sourcing projects and more options out there for end users and organisations. Does anybody want to add for their category on that one?
Yeah.
Swapnil?
So, Matt, yes, I would want to pick up a point on the wall gardens of the media companies like Google, Facebook are coming down with the with increase in retail media, acceptance of retail media as one of the mainstreams, where the focus is on more to deliver ROI to the marketing investments and not on focus on the consumer experience, and therefore ensuring efficiency, effectiveness, and focus on ROI. Keeping in mind the boom in retail media is going to be the key lever and the key changing dynamics of the marketing environment for 2023.
Thanks, Swapnil. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, I think on the R&D side, regulation definitely plays a very key role. Whether it comes to clinical trial approvals or it comes to R&D testing. So I think the focus one needs to be that they place a high importance on ensuring that regulation and regulatory approvals are done in time. So one, I think in terms of timing, it's very important. And second is managing costs. So within R&D, regulatory costs is a major component when we look at the entire unit economics. So I think those two factors need to be considered while looking at various market dynamics, that they are looking at both the cost as well as the timing of managing regulations and getting their approvals.
Yeah, I think from the Capex category standpoint as well, there have been some ESG regulations as well as stricter emission reduction targets as well in Europe, and that is very well applied to the equipment category as well. Uh, uh, you know, as I was saying in the answering to the previous question as well, a lot of things can be managed at the designing and scoping stage. So have a technical experts to be part of your scoping stage and develop the plans which will help you to have a sustainable construction projects as well as equipment designing as well, which will essentially help you out achieving your sustainability targets and reducing the construction waste as well. So uh, I think that would be great from the capex standpoint for the new year. And I think we have covered most of the questions. Matthew, is there any other questions that we can take?
No, I think we're going to wrap it up there, Nishikant. So we're just coming up to the end of our time slot. So let me end. So I'm going to end this webinar now. A massive thank you to Swapnil, Bhawna, and Nishikant for sharing your expertise in your respective categories. Thank you very much for joining to the audience. We hope you found this session useful. If you don't have a copy of the 2023 category outlook, please go to the GEP website and download a copy as soon as you can. And feel free to join us tomorrow at the same time, where we will be covering facilities management, professional services, legal services, and travel. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye.